Welcome to today's edition of Liberty Action Network TV. I'm your host, Doreen Finkel, and today, folks, we're going to be talking with Rick von Glahn, who is a candidate for U.S. Representative in District 11 of New Jersey. Welcome to the show, Rick.
Thank you.
Before we get into the nit and grit, I'd like to get some background about you, and you can tell us, give us your background information.
Okay. Well, I come from Denville. I've been a Morris County resident all my life. My wife and I have been married for 24 years, and we raised 3 sons here in town. Johnny, Richie, and Daniel. Both Richie and Daniel have enlisted in the Marine Corps, and Richie currently serves over in Japan. Danny's out of the Marine Corps now, and he goes to Rutgers University. I attended school at Fairleigh Dickinson University and studied economics and finance. And for the last 25 years or so, I've been self-employed as a home improvement contractor, builder in the county. And this is we're home, and this is where we raise the kids.
And so they've gone to school here and,
oh, yeah.
and college.
Yep.
And all of them went to college in New Jersey, or?
Well, our oldest son didn't attend college. He's off on his own. He's doing his own thing. And Richie, again, is in the Marine Corps, and Daniel's down at Rutgers.
So what made you decide to run for office?
Well, my feeling is that Congress is broken. The government is broken. And the problem that we have is that Congress, who controls the purse strings of our country, is falling down on the job. They're letting things get by that they never should have. The way to control the government and keep things in check is to control the purse strings, and they refuse to do it. Now, the government has just gotten too big and too intrusive and too costly in our lives, and so I really feel that those folks that we keep sending down there are the problem.
And let me ask you, when you were raising your kids, did you feel that just because the fact that you went to vote, that was enough?
Well, I didn't think it was enough, but at times that's the best you can do, because you're busy raising your family, you're running a business, you're dealing with the Boy Scouts, you're involved in different things. Early on, I was involved with later on, I was involved with my church, and I was ordained a deacon in the Catholic Church, and have served there and served at Morristown Hospital for quite a few years. So you don't really get involved, but I've always been involved. I tell the story about how when my wife and I were first dating, that we went down to Trenton to protest the tax on toilet paper when Jim Florio was governor way back when. So I've always been involved, but not.
But was that your first time for real activism?
But probably was, yeah, and that's probably 20, 25 years ago now. So
you got somewhat of a taste of it.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then later on, we got involved in different, every so often you would get involved in rallies and protests and things, Right to Life we used to go down to Washington for, and things like that. So we've always been involved, but always on the outskirts, always on the fringes. So.
And you had mentioned that you felt the government is broken.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Assuming you get into office, what are some of the things you'd like to do?
Well, I think, first of all, we need to work together. But I think most people have common goals. Nobody wants to pay a whole lot of taxes. Everybody wants to be able to insure their kids. Everybody wants to live a free life. The amount of regulations and things that we have coming down from government right now is inhibiting and really destroying our way of life. Every time you turn around, government is putting some kind of control on you, some kind of a limitation on you, and that's not the way it was supposed to be. When I get elected, I would love to be able to work with all those people on both sides of the aisle to bring our national government back under control where it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a limited government. It wasn't supposed to be this big leviathan that it is, this
right.
overreaching thing that it is today. The states were supposed to have the majority of the power, and the federal government got their power from the states. And the whole thing's kind of backwards now, where the federal government has the bulk of the control. And the states have given it up willingly, unfortunately.
Right. And I had noticed on your website you had listed 6 major categories that you'd like to be effective in, and one of them was Obamacare. How do you feel that this Obamacare is going, and what do you think you want to do when you get in office?
Well, I think Obamacare should be repealed completely before it takes hold, before it becomes part of the public fabric. This is one of the biggest job killers in our country today. And the fact of the matter is business is sitting on its hands, it's sitting on its money, it's not expanding because it doesn't know how much this is going to cost them ultimately. So Obamacare needs to go. There are so many things that they could have done other than this. They could have started with tort reform. They could have started with buying insurance across state lines. There are any number of things that they could have done incrementally to make the system better. But they chose to do it this way, and it's just not going to work. It's going to collapse under its own weight just because of what it is, which it seems to be just a conglomeration of things that people thought were a good idea, and there's no cohesiveness to the whole bill.
And how does Obamacare, I guess, affect the employer or not stimulate them from doing what they need to do?
Well, you can't hire employees if you don't know how much those employees are going to actually cost you, and that's the big question today: is what is this thing ultimately going to cost me? I mean, even private sector people who buy their own insurance don't know what their health insurance is going to cost. So how can you expect business to hire and employ people when they don't even know what every employee is going to cost them? So.
Right, and so basically what you're saying is that there's some uncertainty and the employer won't go ahead to hire more people.
Exactly. Who's going to hire when they don't know what it's going to cost them? Nobody's going to do that.
That's true. And let's move on to reducing government spending. Okay, we all know we're up to what,
$17.5 trillion.
Okay. If I could make tears, I would cry over that because our kids going to pay for this.
That's exactly right. Our kids and our grandkids. It's not even. This is extending well beyond our kids. The $17.5 trillion is outrageous to me. Barack Obama, since he's been in office, has increased our national debt by $6 trillion. That's a travesty, because especially since we don't even know where all this money is going, because he hadn't had a budget for the first 4 or 5 years that he was in office. They only recently, with the Ryan Murray budget, we finally have an idea of where the money's going to.
So now with this 17 trillion, okay, what do you say to your sons who are now going to have to carry this on their back and somehow pay this back?
Well, what can you say to your sons? You almost have to apologize because we let this happen. Again, the Congress is letting this happen because they control the purse strings. So, it's important to let these young people know that their vote counts and they make a difference. And who they put in office makes a difference in their lives. So we need to stress that to our young people. Some people are apathetic, some people don't pay attention, some people just don't care. But the fact of the matter is everybody's got to care about this. The spending is outrageous. And, my thing is that I would roll the spending back to 2007, 2008 levels. And that's what should be done. All of us in the private sector have had to cut and tighten our belts. So why shouldn't the government have to do that as well?
That's right. And also, I want to mention unemployment. The national rate is around 8%. And both Obamacare and the government spending don't exactly help bring the unemployment rate down.
Right.
But this figure doesn't include those who have run out of insurance, or doesn't include those who are just working part-time to help subsidize their income. So what would you do to help bring the unemployment rate down?
Well, you have to stimulate the economy, and the way you do that is to cut taxes and get rid of some of the regulation. Nobody's going to start a business in this climate, especially in New Jersey, where we are overregulated and overtaxed. We're one of the highest tax states in the nation. And nobody wants to start a business. If you walk up and down Main Street in any town, there are stores that are closed up or stores that are vacant. A lot of the malls have vacant stores, things like that. People are not coming in. They're not going to start businesses in a climate like this. You need to cut taxes. You need to get rid of some of the regulations.
And by the way, New Jersey has one of the highest property tax rates in the nation. So I just wanted to point that out. And let's go on to immigration. Okay. A lot of my constituents have said, if you have an airport in your state, you have a potential immigration problem, an illegal problem. Most of us are immigrants, but most of us have come here legally. So what would you do to address the issue?
Right. Well, the minute a person steps off an airplane, they're free to come and go in our country and just disappear into our populace. Unfortunately, it's true. We have a very porous border, and we need to tighten that up. Again, the Congress refuses to do that. The President refuses to do that. He refuses to enforce the laws that we have on the books. But we do need to tighten all our border security, and that goes for the airports and our north and southern border. That's the first thing that people want. Most everybody does not want a comprehensive immigration bill. They want to start off small. And the first thing you do is to tighten the border security.
And too, the other thing is that once you're here, let's say you're illegal, you go ahead and have a child. Now that child, by rights, is an American citizen. Okay.
Well, that's not a law or anything. It's just something that we've done over the years. And quite honestly, I think that's kind of wrong. If I go to France or I go to Germany or I go to any other country in the world and we have a baby while we're there, that does not automatically make that child a French citizen or a German citizen. So why is that the norm here? I don't understand that.
And immigration or undocumented also affects the education, affects the health care, affects all the government institutions. One being, of course, again, back to education. Recently, Governor Christie had signed a bill, whereas if you're in New Jersey, you are undocumented, you can take advantage of the in-state tuition.
Yeah, and I don't really agree with that. But we pay an awful lot of people an awful lot of money for a lot of things that I don't understand or agree with. You know, especially when we don't take care of our own citizens. You know, my big complaint right now is you know, with our senior citizens who pay taxes, property taxes. As you mentioned, we have the highest property taxes in the nation. But they pay taxes for 30, 40, 50 years on a house, and then at some point they have to sell their home because they can't afford the property taxes? That's not right. Or we have senior citizens who perhaps have to choose between health care or medicine for ailments or heating oil for their house because, you know, we have $4.50 or $4.50 gas or oil. So, you know, we're not helping the people that are here and who have paid into the system. We're helping people who are part of, you know.
Right. And what a lot of people don't see is that, let's say you're in Morris County somewhere and the average taxes are maybe 10 to 15,000, maybe a little bit higher. But let's say you pay 10,000 a year, they don't see over 10 years that amounts to 100,000. You could have put that into something else.
Right, exactly. I mean, I don't know why every other state has such low property taxes compared to New Jersey. I guess because we fund the schools through our property tax, but it just seems to be outrageous the way we do it in New Jersey.
Okay, so let's move on to mandatory term limits for legislators. Okay, and you had said that you are for term limits. Okay, what would be the benefit to that?
Well, the thing about it is our country was never meant to be full of career politicians. It was meant to be citizen servants. You came in from your job, from your private life, you went and you did a couple years, and then you went back to your business. It wasn't meant that you got a job and you stayed there and that position was yours until you died. It's not the way it was supposed to be. And it's a pretty good indication of the problem that we have today. This is the reason that we have it, because these people care more about their reelection than in doing what we sent them to do, which is to represent us. So they spend more time on their reelection and pandering to people who can help them get elected than they do worrying about.
Right, and so I guess what you're saying is that these people sort of lose touch with.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. They care more about, who can help them rather than helping the people that sent them there.
Right, and we have to remind the people that the people are the boss, not the elected official.
Exactly right.
And so then let's move on to let's go to the Second Amendment. Okay. Second Amendment right to bear arms. In New Jersey, we do have the right to own a weapon, but I often say we don't have the right to carry, because in New Jersey, if you have a weapon, and let's say you want to go to the shooting range, you have to go to the shooting range and come back. You cannot stop anywhere for gas, use the restroom, for coffee, even at Uncle John's house, okay? Because if you are caught while you're stopped, it is a mandatory 7 years in prison.
Yeah, in essence, what the government does, it makes criminals out of law-abiding citizens. Because again, the laws are just, there are just so many of them, most people don't even know all the laws that encompass the gun laws. The fact of the matter is, the Second Amendment is a basic right that we have. It was put in the Constitution for a reason. And one of the reasons was that we could protect ourselves from an overzealous government. But the fact of the matter is, we have a right to protect ourselves, to protect our homes, to protect our families. We should be able to carry a gun as long as we're mentally stable, as long as we go through the necessary tests and we're safety trained. There's nothing wrong with gun ownership. And I think that people who are afraid of guns, people who fight against guns, should really take the time to learn about them. We have great facilities in New Jersey to where someone who's concerned about this stuff could go and learn and see that these things are not harmful if they're used safely and respectfully.
But the issue that concerns me with this, well, there's a number, but one is, let's say you're from out of state, okay, and you don't really know the law, okay? And by the way, in New Jersey, if you are carrying your weapon to and from the range, you have to carry it in a compartment, and the bullets, I understand, have to be carried separate. Okay, but let's say you are from Pennsylvania, okay, and you're just passing through the state, and you don't know the state law, and you happen to get stopped. Okay, which there are cases going. So if it's a mandatory 7 years in prison, the person doing this was innocent.
Well, I would call your legislator and voice your opinion and let them know that you're not happy with this, because it's really a shame that, again, someone who might be obeying the Pennsylvania law is breaking the New Jersey law. It's, perhaps we need to have a nationwide set of standards, a set of rules. I wouldn't want them to go with the New Jersey standard, that's for sure, because they're way over bounds as far as the regulations that we have on guns and gun ownership in New Jersey.
Well, the other issue with this is, and I'm sure you run across this, you have teens, you had teens, okay? I have teenage boys, and they have gone to Pennsylvania to paintball. And one time they had gone with their friends, and they had bought a paintball gun out there. And the friend's mom was driving, and they didn't know the law in New Jersey, even with a paintball gun. And she came back into New Jersey, and I guess somebody saw it or called her in, and 4 cop cars brought her down, and they took her out. There was no questions asked. They just put her arms up and behind, and then, and the kid, she had to say this was a toy paintball gun. So.
What can I tell you? Welcome to New Jersey.
Which sometimes I feel like we live behind the Iron Curtain.
Well, sometimes it feels like that.
So, okay, let's go on to another one. Okay, you had mentioned that you are pro-life, protection of human life at every stage of life. And this brings up Roby versus Wade, into which some of us don't believe that that decision was correct.
Mhm.
And recently, well then, after they came out with the sonogram and whatnot.
Mhm.
So I guess what would you do to, or would you do anything to see if you can get that piece of legislation reversed?
Well, I would always fight for life. I would always do that. Unfortunately, at this point in time, it depends on the will of the people. And right now, probably the will of the people, for the most part, is that we keep that law intact. And until we have enough voices to fight and to have that thing repealed, it's going to be, unfortunately, the law of the land. I don't agree with it. I don't want it. Life to me is precious. You know, I'm a faithful guy, and as far as I'm concerned, I would do everything I could to fight for life. But that being said, again, this is the law, and most likely I won't, maybe not while I'm going through this, probably won't have much to do with that, because I don't see that changing yet. But if we keep at it and we keep fighting and people keep voicing their opinions, we may have a shot in years to come.
But the other side to the coin is this, is that, well, the constituents say, the left-wing constituents say that if you did not have this law, there would be many unwanted children.
Well, I think that's a bunch of lies. There are waiting lists of people waiting to adopt children in our country, and people have to go to Europe and to other countries in order to find children to adopt. So I don't believe that for 1 second. And I also don't believe that, you know, for the health and of the parents, I mean, for the health of the mother, those instances are so rare. I mean, of course we'd have to do something if a mother's life was at stake, but, you know, they bring up things that are so minute as far as the number of times that things happen. So it's really a shame.
Well, and then one time we had asked a couple students on college campus, you know, would you go for having an abortion in the 10th month?
Mm-hmm.
And we got a couple looks at that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the issue here.
Yeah.
Because, you know, at what point they say does life start,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as opposed to somebody just ending the life, you know, and then we have those who use abortion as a means of contraceptive.
Right.
Which is outright.
Right.
Just murdering of a child.
Right, and late-term abortion, and I've even, there was a thing on the internet the other day that I was watching that, you know, this person, whoever it was defending pro-choice folks, and they couldn't get her to admit that it was murder if the baby was born after an abortion procedure, and if the baby was still alive, that she wouldn't admit that it was murder once they ended that child's life after it had been born. It's, you know, our society has become coarse and callous as far as this goes. So there's no respect for life anymore.
No, and also I wanted to see. This, to my understanding, that some portion of our taxpayer money go to subsidize that.
Mm-hmm. Well, they do. Some of our tax money does, and it's not supposed to, but it does. And you know, again, if people don't pay attention and watch what is being done and what money is being spent and where it's being spent, you know, these things are going to happen because people have a way of taking advantage of the system.
It's a question, another one of my favorites. Since you've been running for office, how has your life changed in the past few months?
Well, it's busy, that's for sure. I meet a lot of nice people. It's really kind of been amazing in that I walk on the weekends, you know, canvassing and things like that, and I'm just amazed at the reception. You know, people will thank me for doing this. They understand that my opponent's been there too long, that he's part of the problem, and so they're grateful that somebody is doing something. And it's been amazing. It's been great.
But has most of the reception been positive?
It has. It has. You know, when I'm walking and knocking on doors, 90% of the people are supportive. 90% of the people will thank me. Maybe 5%, 8% may, you know, support my opponent, but for the most part, people have been great. So.
And if you get elected, okay, and you serve your term, okay, then would you run again?
I would run again, yeah. I think that for myself, 6 years, 8 years might be the max, and then I would step down and let somebody else do it, because I think it really should be a revolving door. That's what it was supposed to be, and you know, the churn is good. You know, to have new people come in with new ideas and then to send them back home, you know, after a couple of years is a good thing. It's a healthy thing for our country. We have the other right now, and look at the shape we're in.
Are you getting any support from the Republican Party?
Not at this point, but I really didn't expect it. You know, they have a guy in office right now, so they have a Republican, you know, so they're not going to rock the boat. If I win the primary, then I would hope that they would step up and they would support me.
And Rick, can you tell everybody what your website is?
My website is www.rickvanglahn.com.
And Rick, once again, is a candidate in the primaries in District 11 in New Jersey. He's running against Rodney Frelinghuysen.
Yes.
Okay, who's a veteran there, 20-year incumbent.
20 years, yep. Actually, 40 years in government. So he's been there a long time.
Oh, okay. And I just want to ask you one more thing. How do you feel like running against Rick?
Well, you know, it's a challenge because you know he has a name. You know he has an awful lot of money. You know he has an awful lot of backing. But the fact of the matter is, I think that we're neglectful if somebody doesn't run against him. Unfortunately, this year, no one was going to run against him again. So that's when I stepped up and I said, well, I'll do it. Even though it's a long shot, even though I may not, you know, it's the right thing to do. I think every incumbent should be challenged in every election. So it's just America. That's what we should do in America.
Can you, at this point, say or tell how many voters you're going to get or votes?
No, I couldn't tell you at this point.
So you don't know, just turn out and vote, right?
Well, I hope everybody, you know, if you agree with me, let me put it this way. If you like the way things are going in the country right now, and if you think that these guys are doing a good job, then you vote for the incumbent. But if you think changes need to be made, if you think that things are on the wrong track, if you think that what's going on now is not good for our country, then you want to try to change and you want to do something different. So try somebody who's been in business. I've run a business my whole life. I know how to balance a budget. I know how to work, you know, and negotiate with people. It's been my life's work for 25, almost 30 years now. So. Great.
And folks, we're out of time. Thank you for joining us, Rick.
Thank you.
For more information on our show, please go to campusteaparties.com. That's campusteaparties.com. And thank you.